Our first guest at Signal Asia is Rosaline Chow, founder and CEO of CXA Group based in Singapore. Rosaline invested $5 million of her own savings and borrowed another $5 million to build CXA. Prior to launching it, she supervised the P&G factory lines in Iowa, worked on Wall Street, launched 2 dot-com startups, and worked in the insurance industry. Welcome, Rosaline. It's very good to have you.
Great to be here.
So I want to start with CXA itself. Please tell us, just in your own words, what problem are you solving with CXA?
I actually had a very large Chinese client in China, and what they bought a lot of insurance for their employees. But what they discovered was that they had too many late-stage cancers. It paid off, but it was too late to help these employees. So what this client told me was that, look, in China, we do health screenings every year and we buy insurance. Why can't someone connect these two things? Why can't we have prevented these diseases from becoming late stage? So I wanted to connect insurance with the entire ecosystem of checkups, of seeing doctors, of going to the lab, and of also getting healthier and disease management. So we found a way for employees to use a benefits wallet to shift the money according to their life stage and also to their health needs.
And so you noticed this problem, and it wasn't being solved, apparently. Tell us a little bit more about how you actually created the platform. Tell us your sort of founding story.
Yeah, so I was running the Asia Pac region for Mercer Marsh Benefits, the largest insurance broker. And I had grown the region 800% using brute force. But all of our corporate clients complain not just about us, but about the entire industry. So, why is healthcare costs rising so high every single year, double digit? Our employees' health is getting worse. We're spending so much money, but our employees don't like one-size-fits-all benefits. And why is everyone just focused on insurance, which waits until you're really sick? Why aren't we focused on early detection and prevention? Why can't we move the money? So I begged for 5 years for $10 million to solve these issues, but never got my firm to agree. So that's when I left to build it on my own. But little did I realize it'll be my own money. But by then I was obsessed. So to build it, it was really difficult because I was working in my living room and who's going to talk to me in my living room? So I had to buy a broker in order to win clients. And once I won clients, I was able to convince the insurance companies and the clinics and the labs to integrate to me because I had revenues for them. So it's always the chicken and the egg to build a startup because you have no credibility working out of your living room by yourself and your kids, right?
Yeah.
So
well, that's changed a little bit in the last year and a half, hasn't it?
It has. It has. COVID has changed the game.
Right, absolutely. Well, we can certainly get into that in a minute. But as I understand it, one of the tools that helped you succeed with CXA is that you applied artificial intelligence and data in order to understand the market and move the needle for your clients. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you did that? AI is a big part of the conversation here at Signal this year.
Yeah, the insurance industry never had data because everything is a paper receipt. So I started by integrating the HR to get the age, gender, the kids, the dependents, the parents' data. Then I built out the insurance data, digitized insurance, but I was able to integrate with the labs to get the health screening data. I was able to get the lifestyle data from employees because we track steps. I was able to get diagnosis and drugs from the clinics and the hospitals and the procedures. And so when you have all of this data and you have a marketplace and you're able to have a wallet and have people shop, imagine what this kind of data together at a granular level where you can propose ways to get healthier, the right type of insurance, and what you should do if you get healthier to manage a disease. So it's really at that granular level where you connect everything in the ecosystem. So banks and insurers are using us to cross-sell insurance and banking plus wellness companies, because in Asia, no one will marry you if you cannot buy a house or a car. And we know when people get married or when they have kids. So we're able to do many more things with this level of granular data.
Interesting. Now, did you, during the earlier part of your career, imagine yourself an entrepreneur, someone who would risk your entire savings to start a company? Or was this something that was driven by that frustration later in your career?
This is my third startup, but I never thought of starting a company. Everything in my life has been an accidental journey. I started my career at P&G. So at P&G at 22 in 1984, I moved from Los Angeles to Iowa and discovered I was going to manage 33 people, primarily much older than me. But that was my first transformation. I arrived at the time when we were building out just-in-time inventory and moving from 3-month packing runs to 3-hour packing runs to be just in time. So that kicked off my career of leading massive transformations. And in the 35 years since, I've only worked on startups, building something from scratch, or transforming corporate divisions. Right. So P&G was where I got my start, but I didn't know I would do startups until it happened.
Right, right. And you joined an illustrious group of P&G alumni who have now come back to tell their stories after working at P&G, and 4 or 5 of them just today, as a matter of fact. So, that's a good club to be in. The entrepreneur's journey is sometimes serendipitous. I was told that your background growing up also really informed your life's journey. Can you tell us a little bit about that, growing up with your father and some of the issues that you had to go through during your childhood?
So I have a typical immigrant story. My father at 19 got on a dragon boat from China, landed in Mexico, somehow ended up in San Francisco, Chinatown. My mother left 2 children behind during the Communist Revolution when they took away her property and sent her mother to labor camp. My father, after hiding for 40 years in San Francisco, decided he wanted to reproduce, so gave himself up for amnesty, was made a citizen. That wouldn't happen nowadays. They probably would have sent him back to Mexico. And met my mother in Hong Kong. She didn't tell him that she was already married and had 2 children. They ended up back in San Francisco and then in Los Angeles, which was the only place they could afford a home. My mother, after my brothers were born, finally told my father that she left 2 children behind, so please sponsor my daughters. Unfortunately, they arrived right when the Watts riots were happening. So I can still remember my father outside with the police keeping the rioters away because we were the one non-Black family. So I grew up really poor and watching my parents stay positive despite a life of loss and heartbreak. So what I learned was that if you survive seemingly insurmountable obstacles, you learn that you can overcome pretty much anything. And so failure is not that big of a risk. And in a startup, there's always a valid excuse for every failure, but you just learn to overcome those valid excuses.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I feel that, absolutely. Going back to the core insights of the CXA group, it strikes me, as you were describing the problem that you set out to solve, that it feels a lot like a problem we have right here in the United States.
It's a problem in every country.
Yeah, yeah. And so do you have your sights set on expanding beyond your current region?
We do. We have a lot of interests, but the issues in Asia with diabetes are so much worse, and the aging population so much worse that there's so much to do here, even before we go overseas to Europe and the Americas.
Understood, understood. Well, you can't get here too fast as far as we're concerned. Now, we mentioned this earlier, but I wanted to get your take on the, one of the big lessons of the pandemic, which is this rebalancing of work and life. What have you noticed in the data that you see and the interactions you have with your customers? How has work changed? What does the future of work look like now that we've gone through this past 18 months?
There's been massive changes here in Asia. What we've noticed is that the move to digital has happened. We connected many teledoctors who deliver prescriptions to people's homes, and we had done that pre-COVID. But during COVID, it just went up 10 times, the volume. And so even now, as Singapore is getting better and China has gotten better, people are continuing for mundane things, things that are not so serious, to use digital. We also noticed that the banks and the insurers discovered that no one wanted to see their insurance agents or walk into a branch. So the move to digital really quickened. We also work with a lot of firms that wanted employee engagement despite the hybrid environment. So we built engagement apps for many firms, in addition to all our health apps, to help employees with employee engagement, with challenges, wellness challenges, but they can upload pictures of themselves as they go through daily life, meditating, exercising, playing with their kids, and commenting on each other's pictures. So they didn't want to just see everyone on Zoom. They wanted to engage. So work life became super important, and hybrid became super important. And for myself, my own life, I've always had to integrate work with life. So my second startup, I quit only because I discovered my daughter had epilepsy and a learning disorder. And you can imagine the guilt of a working mother commuting to KL from Singapore every week, and your daughter, has all these issues. That's when I quit. This time around, I only started CXA after my daughter overcame everything and was applying for college in the US. So she overcame all her issues. So work and life, for me, as well as for everyone else that we work with, it's pretty well integrated. I started my business in my house. My kids were my interns, probably the worst interns ever, but they studied computer science after working for me. And this issue of work and life, I felt guilty about my whole life. And I only lost my guilt recently after my daughter told me, when I asked her, what do you want to do when you grow up anyways? You know, now that you've graduated from college. And what she told me, um, which I couldn't believe because I always thought she was ashamed of me, was that, Mommy, I want to grow up and become just like you. So I think the balance of work and life needs to be there, especially as workplaces, now emerge, with these hybrid environments.
Yeah.
There's talent can move, right? And so if we can accommodate talent, that's going to be really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have some final words of wisdom? Now you have experience working at P&G, you understand the culture of the company. What words of wisdom do you have for those working in large corporations who are looking for change? It's one of the core tenets of this event, is to learn how to innovate. And our theme of always learning, always leading this year really, touches on that. So what would be your parting words or words of wisdom as to how to succeed in changing and becoming either an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur and creating innovation inside your own company?
So I've gone between startups as well as transforming corporations. I do believe it is possible in both. And I do believe a lot of employees already know what the issues are. I mean, my whole life has been, finding an issue, everyone complaining, knowing what to do, but how do you force through change? So to me, it's the most fulfilling thing you can do if you can have a positive impact. And so it really is all about building that momentum and that vision for the change and empowering people to actually be part of that journey, because we're all on a mission to make the impossible happen. And it is possible. And if you have that conviction and you can get the resources, to me, is quite fulfilling to be able to do that. And so P&G was the best place for me to have started my career and help me embark on a lifetime of transformation. So I would encourage everyone to be part of that.
Yeah. Well, Rosaline, thank you so much for being part of Signal. Best of luck on your continued success with CXA. And we hope you'll come back to Signal and tell us how it's going in a little while.
Thank you.